The Man Beneath the Aurora. On the frozen outskirts of the colony moon Varela. 9. A man named Kalen Rowe lived alone. His home was a patchwork of scavenged metal and half-functioning solar panels, perched beneath shimmering auroras that painted the ice plains in green fire. Kalen wasn't born there. He'd been exiled to Varela after a failed rebellion against the Interstellar Regency 10 years earlier. Once a decorated pilot, he was now a farmer of glow lichen and silence. Then one night, his scanners pinged an object descending fast. Too fast for a regular shuttle. Kalen ran out into the storm, frost crunching under his boots, as a sleek, broken craft cut through the sky and slammed into the snow ridge a kilometer away. The ship bore the royal insignia of House Elissa, the most powerful dynasty in the galaxy. He nearly turned away. Getting involved with royalty was what had destroyed his life once already. But the ship's hull split open, and he saw 3 figures stumble out, women injured, cloaked in soot and royal armor. "Please," one gasped. "Don't let them find us." The eldest's eyes glowed faintly gold under her cracked visor. He recognized her at once. Princess Alara Elissa, heiress to the Regency throne, presumed dead for 2 years. That night, the Exile became a guardian to the 3 exiles. He took them in, Alara, her younger sister Saren, and their cousin Lyra, and hid the wreckage of their ship beneath the frozen crust of a nearby canyon. The princesses refused to say much about who they were fleeing, only that their mother, the Empress, had been assassinated and the throne seized by a warlord named Lord Tavries, a former general who'd turned on them. Over the next few months, Kalen's lonely world filled with new voices, laughter, and arguments echoing through his makeshift home. They shared stories by the heater's dim glow. Saren, impulsive and fiery, mocked his old-world cooking and insisted on teaching him palace etiquette. Lyra, quiet and calculating, spent hours studying his communication systems, modifying frequencies and encryptions he didn't understand. Alara, always reserved, would help him tend the lichen farms. Hands once meant for royal seals now caked with soil. It was Alara who eventually said it aloud. "You're not just an exile, are you? You were one of us. A commander of the Celestial Fleet." Kalen hesitated. Until I stopped following orders to burn innocent worlds. Something in her expression softened. That night she left her royal insignia, an obsidian brooch, on his table. "Then perhaps you still have a soldier's honor." 3. The years of silence. For 3 years they lived in that fragile peace. Kalen helped them recover, taught them to survive the storms, and slowly, they began to plan their future. Alara wanted to rebuild their fleet in secret. Saren dreamed of vengeance. Lyra said little, but her eyes always flicked toward the stars. But survival on Varela was harsh. Tavries's bounty hunters combed nearby systems. Each month brought near misses. Drones skimming too close, coded transmissions intercepted. Kalen dismantled his long-range transmitters to protect them. Over time, something unspoken grew between him and Alara. They would walk beneath the auroras, speaking of impossible futures. Once she said, "If I ever reclaim my throne, I'll make sure the galaxy remembers the man who hid us when no one else would." He smiled, shaking his head. "Just survive. That's all the reward I need." But fate doesn't stay frozen forever. For the signal. One night, Kalen found Lyra awake, hunched over a comm array she wasn't supposed to use. Static bled across the speakers and faintly, a coded beacon pulsed, a frequency only a royal fleet would use. "Lyra," he said carefully, "what have you done?" She turned, eyes cold and sharp. "I called for help." Alara appeared at the doorway. "You what?" They need to know we're alive, Lyra snapped. Hiding here forever won't bring back our mother's empire. But the signal was too strong. It wasn't a distress call, it was a broadcast. Tavriz's forces could trace it. Within hours, scanners flared. Dozens of heat signatures descended from orbit. The hunters had found them. Kaelin rallied what little defense they could. The small outpost became a fortress of makeshift turrets and plasma mines. As the sky burned with incoming dropships, Kaelin turned to Alara. Get your sisters into the underground tunnels. I'll hold them off. I'm not leaving you, she said. He kissed her forehead briefly. You have to. You're the reason I still fight. He didn't see her tears freeze in the cold wind as she disappeared into the tunnels. Fire on Virella. The battle was chaos. Kaelin fought like the man he once was, darting through smoke and ice, his plasma rifle glowing blue against the white. For every hunter he cut down, 2 more landed. When a shockwave from an explosion threw him into the snow, his last memory was of the auroras flickering red like blood. When he woke, he was in a medical stasis pod. The air was warm. Voices murmured above him. Unfamiliar, official. He was no longer on Virella. The war was over. 6. The return of the queens. He awoke years later, body repaired with synthetic muscle. His name restored in the interstellar registry. The new empire had risen, stronger, united. And at its center sat Queen Alara Elissa, first of her name, liberator of the core worlds. The princess he'd hidden was now the most powerful woman in the galaxy. He was brought to her palace, a gleaming citadel orbiting the twin suns of Orpheon. As he stepped into the grand hall, the crowd fell silent. The queen descended from her throne, wearing the same obsidian brooch he'd once kept beside his bed on Virella. Kaelin Rowe, she said softly. You once sheltered exiled princesses. Today, the queens of the empire welcome you home. Behind her stood Saren, now commander of the celestial fleet, armored in obsidian and gold. And beside her Lyra, dressed in deep crimson, eyes as unreadable as ever. Kaelin bowed low. Your Majesties. But Alara reached for his hand. Don't call me that. Not you. 7 shadows beneath the crown. First it seemed like a happy ending. The sisters had overthrown Tavriz, rebuilt their mother's empire, and ended decades of bloodshed. Kaelin was given lands and a seat on the Queen's Council. Yet something felt wrong. Saren grew distant, obsessed with expanding the fleet into uncharted sectors. Her voice, once full of fire, now carried the cold efficiency of a soldier who'd seen too much. Lyra's intelligence network stretched into every colony. Rumors whispered that she used Tavriz's own assassins for her operations. And Alara, she looked tired. Beautiful, regal, but weighed down by invisible chains. One evening, she visited Kaelin in the gardens. The air shimmered with the scent of star lilies, flowers native to Virella that she'd cultivated just for him. You look like a man who doesn't believe in peace, she said. He hesitated. Do you? Her gaze drifted toward the horizon where fleets glimmered in orbit. Peace built on fear is fragile. My sisters. They don't see it that way. You mean Saren and Lyra? Alara nodded slowly. They've changed. We all have. But Lyra most of all. The betrayal 2 nights later. Kaelin was awakened by an explosion that shook the palace. Security alarms blared, crimson light flooding the corridors. He grabbed his weapon and ran toward the throne chamber, only to find Lyra's soldiers fighting Alara's guards. In the chaos, he found Saren bleeding by the stairs. Lyra's turned, she gasped. She struck a deal with Tavriza's surviving warlords. She wants the throne. Kaelin fought his way through the smoke toward the throne room. Inside, Lyra stood over Alara, blade humming with dark plasma. "You were always too soft," Lyra hissed. "You think mercy wins empires. Well, fear does. Then you've already become what we ran from," Alara whispered. Kaelin raised his rifle. "Drop it, Lyra." She smiled faintly. "Ah, the Exile. Always showing up where he doesn't belong." The fight was brutal. Lyra's guards swarmed, but Kaelin cut them down. He reached her just as she lunged for Alara and fired. The plasma bolt struck true. Lyra fell, crimson cloak spilling like ink across the marble. Alara collapsed into his arms, shaking. "You shouldn't have come." He smiled faintly. "Would have been lonely otherwise." 9. The price of peace in the aftermath. Lyra's loyalists were hunted down, her networks dismantled. Seren, now scarred and limping, vowed to rebuild the fleet not for conquest, but for defense. Alara's reign stabilized, though her eyes were never quite the same. She named Kaelin Lord Protector of the Realm, an honorary title that meant he could finally rest. Yet even as the Empire thrived, rumors spread of unseen enemies, the remnants of Lyra's faction whispering in the dark. Years later, on the anniversary of Varella's liberation, Alara visited Kaelin at his quiet estate. The sky was filled with twin auroras, eerily reminiscent of that frozen moon. "You could have ruled beside me," she said softly. "I'm no ruler," he replied. "I'm just the man who once built a home in the snow." She smiled sadly. "You gave 3 lost princesses a chance to live. And even when one turned against you, you never stopped believing in us." Kaelin looked up at the stars. "Not all who return come in peace. But the ones who do, make the fight worth it." Alara took his hand, and for a long time, they watched the heavens burn with quiet light. Epilogue. The stars remember years past. Kaelin's name became legend, a symbol of loyalty and courage whispered across the colonies. When he died, Alara ordered that his body be returned to Varela 9, buried beneath the auroras where it all began. Seren commanded the funeral fleet herself. As the casket descended into the snow, she whispered, "Rest now, old friend. The galaxy is safe because of you." And far above, where no war could reach, the auroras flared once more, green and gold and crimson, 3 colors dancing together, forever bound by the story of an exile who sheltered princesses and the queens they became. 11. The true ending, beneath the aurora. Decades later, long after Queen Alara's reign had passed into history, travelers to the icy moon of Varela 9 spoke of strange lights that flickered in the northern skies, auroras that shimmered in 3 colors, green, gold, and crimson. Locals called it the Triad Veil. Pilots claimed that when the winds were quiet and the storms died down, you could hear voices in the air, the faint echo of laughter, of promises made beneath the snow. And at the heart of the tundra, amid the frost and crystal plains, stood a single monument of black stone. Its inscription read, "Here rests Kaelin Rowe, who gave shelter when all others turned away. He defended queens not for crowns, but for kindness." Beside the monument were 3 symbols etched into the ice, the sigils of Alara, Seren, and Lyra. The wind would sweep over them, carrying the snow like drifting stardust. Some nights, explorers swore they saw a 4th figure among the lights, a man walking the frozen ridge, his coat whipping in the wind, watching the sky as if waiting for someone. No one ever found footprints. But the auroras still shone, burning brighter than they had in centuries, A reminder that even in exile, even in loss, a single act of mercy could reshape the fate of empires. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, where the light of the twin suns met the endless dark, the queens of Elissa waited for him, finally at peace.